Hello ladies and welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark Roden, and in today's video we are going to be going over the top 15 most legendary 90s cars that are underrated. Man, I should hire somebody that can teach me how to make like attractive titles, because that was the worst way to describe this video. We're just going over 15 cars that were built in the 90s that I believe are underrated. That's what we're doing. Okay, I don't know why I said it in such a doofus way, but for anybody wondering why I didn't upload for the past 3 days, I'll tell you guys about that at the end of the video. I don't want to bore the people that are here that don't care about that aspect of this channel. So if you care about that, it'll be at the end of the video. I'll talk about why. There's a reason I wasn't just being a bum. But anyway, without further ado, let's go right into the list with number 15. Coming in at 15th place is a bit of a weird one. It's the Toyota Mark II JZX100. And why do I say it's weird? Well, because its brother-in-law, the Toyota Chaser JZX100, is not underrated. It's perfectly rated. It's a very cool car, and people know it's a very cool car. But the Mark II is just as cool in my opinion. It comes with a 2.5 liter twin turbo inline 6, making 276 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. That 276 horsepower, in case you don't know, back in the 90s, Japan, gentleman's agreement, look it up. It's not the real number. They had to water them down pretty much. But either way, that's a 1JZ, partner. Okay, that is the 1JZ. Now, if I'm not mistaken, now I'm not the biggest JZX fan out there. Okay, so somebody's gonna have to remind me in the comments here. But if I'm not mistaken, that's the same motor that came in the Chaser. So why are people liking the Chaser so much more over this car? This car's pretty sick, man. 14th place, however, is one that I always kind of like. The moment I learned about it, I was like, why don't people talk about this car at all? It's the Mercedes SL 600. Now, I know they've made multiple SLs, but I think this is called the R129. It's the first generation of the SL 600, okay? First, it's R129, I believe is the name of it. I don't know. But either way, the car comes with a 6-liter V12 that makes 394 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. Now, that may not sound super insane, because when you really think about it, it's like supercars back then were making like that much horsepower too, but that's exactly my point. This thing had a V12 with 400 horsepower in the 90s. That pretty much is a supercar, and no one really mentions it. On top of that, you can find these things nowadays for like around 10 to 15K. Now, I'm not an expert on the SL. I'm not an expert on Mercedes just in general, so don't quote me on this, but I feel like the reason why it doesn't get that much praise is probably its reliability. It was probably very unreliable, but either way, thing's sick. 13th place is gone to the car that started a pretty big revolution here. The Audi, I don't know why I was like second guessing myself on how to pronounce Audi there, but the Audi S4 C4. I don't think this is the first generation of the S4, but then again, I don't know much about these Audi S4s. The car comes with a 2.2 liter turbo inline 5, making 230 horsepower in its all-wheel drive, because duh. Quattro all-wheel drive is obviously insane. 230 horsepower in the 90s for a freaking sedan is pretty damn nuts. An inline 5 turbo motor. Count me in, partner. This car just had everything that you could possibly want in a sports sedan in the 90s. And it started the Audi S4 line. I just had like a freaking hernia there for a second. Sorry about that. But it started the S4 line. As far as I'm concerned, 12th place is going to one of my favorite cars just in general. The Dodge Viper, second generation. I'm not kidding when I say that either. I love the second gen Dodge Viper, dude. It is so gorgeous. You get, I mean, it's the basic, colors, but you get the blue one with the silver stripes on there. You color me impressed, because that thing is sick. And don't color me in with crayons either. Car comes with an 8-liter V10, making 450 horsepower to the rear wheels. That is an insane combo, obviously. And obviously, yes, the second gen Viper also did run into the 2000s, but it started in the 90s, so I'm going to count it as a 90s car. But an 8-liter V10. This was also before like Dodge had ever made anything that wasn't just an incredibly heavy muscle car. This was their first attempt at like making like a sports car, and instead of making a sports car, they made a supercar. They made just an absolute monster of a vehicle. V10, 450 horsepower. 11th place is a massive drop down in terms of their performance levels, but still just as underrated in my opinion. It's the Ford Probe GT. Here's the thing. Okay, I get it. This car is not the best, right? It's not. It definitely isn't. I'm not going to try and say that it is, but people like hate this car, and that's why I think it's underrated. It comes with a 2.5 liter V6, making only 164 horsepower, and it was sadly front wheel drive. So you may be like, well, and how's it great? It's not. It really isn't great. Like, I'm not saying that the car is incredible. I'm not saying that it deserves all this praise or whatever, but I'm just saying that it's underrated, as in people like hate this car, say it's awful, but it's much better than a lot of other cars out there, in my opinion. You give me a Ford Probe GT over a Camry, over a Corolla, you know, give me this. It's still a cool car. Yes, it's not the best car of the 90s, but it's a cool car. And honestly, the same argument can be made for the next car at the number 10 spot, the Honda Del Sol. Now, I was going to put Honda Del Sol slash the CRX here, but in my opinion, the CRX is pretty like perfectly rated, honestly, where it sits. It gets a lot of praise, but the Del Sol is pretty much the exact same car and doesn't get nearly as much praise. It comes with a 1.6 liter inline 4, making 106 horsepower in its front wheel drive. These cars are Hondas though, so I mean, I don't have to explain to you guys how you can easily get that horsepower up with some easy tuning. But the thing is, right, it's another one of those Hondas back in the 90s that was built. It was a low horsepower, lightweight car, and so all the muscle car guys just didn't really get behind it. No one really cared about it, right? And it fell off the grace, the face of grace. What's the saying there? It fell off the face of the earth, I guess. When it shouldn't have. It's an incredibly lightweight, honestly, like as heavy as a Miata car that only makes 106 horsepower, but it's a Honda, so it can make a lot more power than something like a Miata on its stock motor, and that's awesome. 9th place, however, is going to a vehicle that I honestly have never been able to get behind personally in terms of its looks, but it's still a really good car, the BMW M5 E34. Like I said, I always kind of thought the E34 was just kind of like an ugly duckling of the 5 Series. I'm sorry, I know I'm going to insult some people there, but I just feel like it just kind of looks a little boring compared to the rest of them. But in terms of its performance, it's definitely not. It comes with a 3.8 liter inline 6, making 310 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. Remember before how I said the S4 C4 was like the turbo sports car, or sports sedan that you wanted in the 90s, right? Well, I was wrong, because the M5 E34 was also there. It was obviously slightly heavier than the S4. It wasn't boosted from factory. It was naturally aspirated, but it had more horsepower. So there was definitely an argument to be made for either one of them. But in my opinion, the M5 E34 is just an icon. And yes, I know it's not the first time that BMW made a 5 Series, but in my opinion, is what really started the 5 Series as like a dominant sports sedan. 8th place, I'm going to have some explaining to do because it's very popular and people talk about this car a lot, and it's definitely up there, but it's the Jaguar XJ220. And I'm not saying that the car like deserves, you know, somehow even more praise, because it is pretty popular, you know what I'm saying? But overall, not as popular as you would think. It comes with a 6.2 liter V12, and it makes 500 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. 500 horsepower in a V12 Jaguar. Is it probably the most unreliable car ever built? Yeah, most likely. But I've seen one of these in person. Partner, it is the most gorgeous car on planet Earth. Not really. That goes to the Mazda RX-7, but still, it is so gorgeous. And people talk about the F1, the F40 all the time, right? This car deserves just as much fame as them. I said it. 7th place, back to the world of Japanese car culture for a second, with the Nissan Laurel C33. Admittedly, there's really not much super special about this car, and honestly, you could definitely take this off the list, and I don't think many people would be upset about that. But in my opinion, it is still pretty freaking underrated, man. It comes with a 2.5 liter inline 6, making 225 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. Since it is a Nissan, however, the straight 6 that it does come with isn't like as great as something like a Toyota straight 6, you know, the JZ platforms. It definitely isn't as great as anything like that, but it's still such a good car, dude. I'm pretty sure it comes with an RB. I don't know exactly what RB25 DE maybe is that what it comes with, which is obviously really good, but that's not even the point. It's a luxury VIP, kind of like a Lexus LS400 type of car, but even better. 6th place. Oh my god, there's a lot. I just realized there's going to be a lot of 6s in this part, because it's the Volkswagen Curado VR6. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have never been a massive Volkswagen guy. You guys know that. I do recommend them because they are good cars, and I can see past my personal biases. But the freaking Curado has always had a special place in my heart. It comes with a 2.8 liter VR6, making 190 horsepower, going to, of course, the front wheels. If you know anything about any VR motor, VR4, VR6, it is that it's insanely good for just making power, for just absolutely no reason. These VR motors are just really good for making some decent power. And on top of that, the Curado looks so unique, so different. It doesn't look like anything else on the road, and I love it for that. Volkswagen usually, admittedly, I'm gonna make some people mad when I say this, but Volkswagen usually makes cars that look just like everything else on the road, but the Curado was the complete opposite of that. Fifth place is sort of a cheat code, I guess you can say, because yes, it was built in 1999, but it really became popularized in the early 2000s. But it's a Chevy Corvette C5. Again, this car, I guess you could say, is a 2000s car, but it was technically built in 1999. Like, that was the first year it went on sale, and I'm counting it as a 90s car. It comes with a 5.7 liter V8, making 350 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. Now, if you only stay on YouTube's, you may be like, how is this car underrated? Like, I see a lot of people talking about it. Mark, you talk about it all the time. Like, people like these cars. But if you go onto Instagram or TikTok or any other social media apps, then you know how underrated this thing is. Let me explain something to you. I'm playing a video game called Gran Turismo 7. I'm playing Gran Turismo 7 right now, right? They have every Corvette in that game: C1, C2, C3, C4, C6, C7, and C8, except for the C5. They don't have the C5 in that game. And on TikTok, no one ever talks about the C5. Everybody talks about C6s. The prices for it reflect that. No one likes them. Why? They come with an LS. They're incredibly good looking. Last one to have pop-up headlights. Why do people not like these cars as much as the other ones? They're my favorite. Not even joking. They are my favorite Corvette, and people don't talk about them. Fourth place is another one of the cars that's my personal favorite in the line of cars that came in, and people just don't talk about it enough: the Honda Prelude 4th Gen. Now, admittedly, the whole Prelude line in general doesn't really get talked about as much as you would expect it to, and the reason is it just didn't have the motors that the other cars did. B Series and K Series are just so much better than what these had. I think they were H Series or F Series motors. I can't remember exactly, but they were better motors. They come with a 2.2 liter inline 4, making 190 horsepower in their front wheel drive. Now, that's kind of the payoff, though. Like, I have an Integra, and it has a B Series, so like, yes, you could definitely like say like, okay, well, your Integra has a better motor than these cars, the Preludes, but my Integra motor makes 140 horsepower. These make 190. I get that if you want to build power, then yeah, the B Series or K Series is the way to go. But if you don't, or if you just want to build a little bit of power and you're not going to go overboard with it, why not start with more horsepower? What's the, like, I feel like that's just a better option. And it looks way better than most like Civics and other Hondas do, because they were built to be like actual sports cars. Third place is a car that my dad owns. My dad owns one of these bad boys, and I've always been just a big fan of them because he's always owned them. The Dodge Stealth RT. It's pretty much a 3000 GT VR4. The 3000 GT VR4, however, gets a ton of praise. Like, it's commonly regarded as one of like the JDM legends, right? Like, these, it's hard to find a VR4 3000 GT like under 15K nowadays, which is insane. The Dodge Stealth RT, on the other hand, not as much. It comes with a 3-liter twin-turbo VR4, making 320 horsepower in its all-wheel drive. Now, I don't believe that these cars had active aero like the 3000 GTs did, so that might be the reason why they're a little bit more expensive. But either way, they're pretty much the same thing. And in terms of their looks, yeah, I agree, the 3K GTs, the GTOs, whatever, do look better than the Dodge Stealths, but not by that much. They're still really good-looking cars. But speaking of good-looking cars, now, second place is the BMW 8 Series E31. When I found out about the E31, like a couple years back, and I first found out about it, I literally just did so much research on it. I was so intrigued by this car because I never have heard about it before, and it was so cool. It comes with a 5.6 liter V12, making 372 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. That is the 850 CSI. However, there are a lot of other trim levels of this car that make less power. That is the best one. But either way, those are also pretty good. Pretty much 400 horsepower with a V12 powered BMW, and it's going to the rear wheels. Now, you may be like, well, these cars are probably like stupidly expensive nowadays, and they definitely are. They're not cheap, you know, for a 90s car. They're running at like 30K, which is kind of crazy for sure. But overall, that's pretty cheap for what it is, in my opinion. Like, this is one of the most legendary BMWs out there. Like, I'm talking M1 Pro Car, 3.0 CSL, M3 E30, 850 CSI E31. Those are like the legends. But first place, the most underrated not JDM, well, it is a JDM car, but the most underrated car of the 90s is going to the Nissan Pulsar GTI-R. Is it the best on this list? Absolutely not. Absolutely not even close. It's a freaking hatchback, bro. It's not the best on this list in any means of the word, but it is, in my opinion, the most underrated. It comes with a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4, making 227 horsepower going to the front wheels. What? This guy's saying a front-wheel drive hatchback from Nissan with only 227 horsepower is the most underrated cars of the 90s? Why? Well, because it was an absolute beast. And my phone's ringing. We're gonna have to sit through that. I don't care, because I'm talking. It's an absolute beast. And it came with an SR. You know the motors that the Silvia's had? You know, Silvia S13, Silvia S14, Silvia S15. You know those motors? This car had it, and it was a hatchback, front-wheel drive hatchback. People use them for like time attack nowadays, hill climb racing, but it was also used for rally racing back in the day. These things were racing little, because they were lightweight, short wheelbase little cars. They were racing monsters, and starting with an SR platform, These things are literally deserve to be like a JDM legend, not even joking. And somehow people just don't even know they exist. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of the top 15 most legendary, or I said it again. Why do I keep saying most legendary cars of the 90s? Most underrated cars of the 90s. I am all over the place today. But like I promised in the beginning of this video, let me explain why I missed 3 uploads. I was thinking about what excuse I was going to use throughout the whole video. No, I'm just kidding. What happened was I had a really bad sleep schedule before this weekend. I think I fixed it on, yes, Saturday. So what happened was Friday, I went to go, my sleep schedule was god awful. Like, let me tell you, I was going up to bed at 6 a.m. and waking up at like 3 p.m. And that, like, I'd start my day at like 3 p.m., dude. It was the worst thing ever. So I was like, I'm fixing this. I'm not doing this anymore. I couldn't fix it normally, like by being like setting myself back an hour earlier every day and just waking up like that. I couldn't do it because I don't have, the reason why is because I don't have any reason to actually get up. You know what I mean? I don't have a job that I go to. I just make YouTube videos. So when I woke up, I'd like, if I woke up at like 2 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. to try and set myself back an hour every single day, I would just be like, I don't got anything to do tomorrow. I don't got anything to do today. Let me just go back to sleep. And so instead what I did was I just pulled an all-nighter like I was a high school kid, right? I pulled an all-nighter and it was just like, I'm not going to sleep today. And I just stayed up all throughout Saturday, and it was absolute torture. Like, I feel like I'm getting old, man. I was not doing, I used to do that like literally every other weekend back in high school and back in like middle school. I would do that every other weekend. We'd just be playing Call of Duty Zombies like all night long, and I just wouldn't get any sleep, and I'd be totally fine. Saturday, if you had made a video, if I had made a video, it would have literally just been like this. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark. Today we're gonna be going top 10 most comfortable mattresses. Like, it would have been the worst video on planet Earth if I had tried to make a video Saturday. So I didn't do it that day. Sunday came around and it was pretty much the exact same thing. I was still exhausted. I felt like I was still sleep deprived, even though I got sleep that last night. I felt like I was still sleep deprived, and so I was like, oh my god, I still can't talk to a camera. And then yesterday, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys, I had a friend's thing to go to. We were going out to eat for my friend's birthday, and I know I could have still gotten a video done for sure. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you guys and be like, and it was impossible. I was there all day long. There was 0% chance of me filming. It would have been the worst day of my life. I would have had to squeeze it in between the car rides. Like, no, I had the time to do it, but I was just trying to spend a day with him and have a good time with him and not really, you know, think about that aspect of it. So I hope you guys understand for yesterday, but we're back, baby. We're back, baby. Tomorrow should be a good, bad, and ugly on the E46 BMW. But then after that, probably another top 10, and then we'll see where we're going from there. I want to make more deep dives, but again, I've been trying to fix my sleep schedule these past 2 days, so I haven't done anything really in terms of like productive, and so I really got to get back on that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. After this, I'm gonna go watch the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Have you guys seen that yet? Tell me if it's good in the comments. I'm about to watch it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.